Hey, it's Doris with Aldi Books, and I am here to do a Monday check-in with the books I've finished so far for Nonfiction November. I've got 4 here in my bag, so let's just jump in. These are some great titles. So first I have In the Garden of Beasts by Erik Larson. This is Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin. This focuses on the U.S. ambassador to Germany, to Berlin specifically, in 1933 and 1934, and then a little beyond. So it's just before Hitler's rise to power. He's already in position in the government, but the president is still there and he hasn't become the Führer yet. So really interesting read. There are a couple parts that are a little bit slow, but overall it's just really, I think, an important read in the current mindset. It's very enlightening on the position of ambassadors in the world. And yeah, you know, he is ringing this call of this isn't quite right. It's very bizarre to see. He is a history professor, but has spent a great deal of time in Germany in his college years, so speaks German. And he talks about what it's like to just be a regular guy in the world of ambassadors who tend to be wealthy individuals who just get the position through their social contacts. Hello, impeachment trials on Wednesday. So yeah, this is, and his daughter, it focuses a lot on his 24-year-old daughter, who is quite an interesting character. She's into the glamour of the scene and the boyfriends she can acquire while she's there. Anyway, this I think was very relevant to the times we're in. It was very interesting reading, very much so. And then I finished The Potlikker Papers, A Food History of the Modern South by John T. Edge. So I went into this thinking that it was going to talk about the histories of different food dishes that were synonymous with Southern cuisine. And what it was just so much better. It was really awesome. This focuses around how food and the environment surrounding food bring us together. It was very much a social history of the South. It starts in with the civil rights movement and, you know, serving foods to get money to support the civil rights movement, the sit-ins. It transitions into the hippie movement in the 70s, and beyond that into the modern food renaissance in the South. And it shows how food is an art form and how borrowing from other cultures and the fusion of those cultures brings us together and makes us all better, makes the food better and us as people better. I found it had a very uplifting, positive trajectory over the course of the novel. And yeah, it was just a great read. It wasn't a novel, sorry, over the course of the historical timeline. And then I finished The Great Books. So, The Great Bridge by David McCullough. This is the epic story of the Brooklyn Bridge. And The Great Influenza, the story of the deadliest pandemic in history by John M. Barry. So David McCullough is like he's become a must-read author for me. I fully intend to collect all of his works and read them over time. And then John M. Barry, the same. I just really connected with this one, and I have another one of his in my cart at Book Outlet. So this one is in like the 1870s, I believe, and I think Grant was the president during part of it. Maybe I could be wrong, because historical dates, that would be embarrassing. Now that would make sense with the Civil War, right? Anyway, this was just so inspiring to see how great minds like Washington Roebling and his father before him, John Roebling, are visionary. And like John was visionary and Washington was a little more practical, but just such a problem solver and able to go out there and do things that had never been done before on just such an immense scale. It's just mind-boggling. Today, building this bridge to span the river or this area would be just like no big deal. But at the time, when nobody had ever done something like that, and he sinks these huge caissons into the soil of this river, and they're working underwater without electricity, it's just mind-blowing. So highly recommend David McCullough if you have not read him before. And the pairing of these books was just brilliant. So it made me realize something that I love in literature. I mean, you wouldn't think that bridge building and disease would pair, but great writing, man. This one is also visionary. So here you have doctors and the evolution of medicine. This was right on the cusp of when the United States modernized the science behind medicine, right on the cusp of it. And my dad was a little bit older as far as dads of my generation go. I'm the youngest of 5 children, and there's a 14-year gap between me and the oldest sibling. So my dad didn't go through the great influenza, but my grandmother did. So she was born in 1899. Just a tough old lady by the time I knew her. But she wanted to live to see 3 centuries. So she was born in 1899. Unfortunately, she passed away in 1999 at 99 years old. So she didn't quite make it, but she just had a brilliant life. It's just interesting to think that, she has notes that she wrote during the suffrage movement. It's just like, wow. But anyway, my dad, from time to time when, the great influenza would come up, as it does, I'm kidding, but it does, every once in a while, historical moments will arise in conversation. But he always, talked about what a big deal it was, and, how us young whippersnappers are. It's just the flu, Dad. Holy, it wasn't just the flu. And that's a refrain that resonates over and over in this book. He keeps repeating, it was only influenza. But it was a pandemic on the scale of yellow fever and the Black Death and the plague that you read about in the history books. It was huge. And just to see these scientists, he follows 3 main scientists, and it's brilliantly thought out, where They're different purposes for research. Some of them are socially trying to save people. Some of them are just intellectually fascinated by scientific discovery. Sorry, the sun's coming. Ugh. Anyway, highly recommend this book if you are into the medical field, or, you know, even history. Reading about Wilson, that presidency, I'm gonna have to read one of his biographies now, because yeah. And again, you know, the autocratic government, and it just resonates today. And I was telling Heidi, I read The Great Bridge with her, but it's kind of a little bit, makes you feel a tiny bit better to read history, because, you know, we had gone through a fairly tranquil period in time in our youth, and you read these history books and you realize it's been bad before. So this too shall pass, hopefully. Anyway, I gotta go into work before the sun gets me. I become a vampire frying in the sunlight. Anyway, I'm joking. Chat with you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.